Are we ready? It is 6 o'clock on March 25th, and I'm going to call this Lacey City Council work session to order. Councilmember Dunning is with us remotely, but and Councilmember Greenstein is excused, but all other council members are present. And with that, can I get a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Move to approve the agenda as published.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, then all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Then that motion unanimously carries. We have an agenda. And so first up on our agenda is a public comment. Is anyone from the public here? I don't see anyone. Then let's get right into our next agenda item, which is our Public Works Construction Update.
Evening, council members. I am Deandra Buchanan, the construction manager. And along with Ashley Smith, the design manager, we are going to give you the 2025 construction update.
That's how the heads go.
All right, we're going to start off with the recently completed construction projects. You can see the list there. We consider a project substantially complete when the installation of the items on the project is complete and the product is usable. So you can see a few of them that we're going to be going over. The Beechcrest Wellfield pH improvements, the very recognized College and 22nd tree removal that was recently completed, Ptolemy Sewer and Water improvements, Carpenter and Britton Roundabout. We had some roundabout paving this year, and also the RAC parking lot expansion was completed. This first slide is going to show you the before and after of the RAC parking lot expansion. You can see to the left of how it started. That was just an empty field, and off to the right, the parking lot has been completed. It included stormwater installation, which includes a pond that is up near the upper right, and lighting for the parking lot. It also included installation of electric vehicle charging stations. Another recently completed project was the Carpenter and Britton Roundabout. The pre-construction, as you can see off to the left, was a T intersection at Carpenter and Britton. This is the south leg. We also have the roundabout there. You can see it completed. The project itself included concrete medians, striping, sidewalks, and landscaping. The project limits overlaid the west leg of Britton Parkway up to a match point at Dram Street. And we also paved the westbound direction of Britton Parkway east of the roundabout to a match point across from Western Parkway. Another recently completed item was the Pacific Avenue Holman Road Southeast Roundabout. There's some pictures here. That first one shows photo of Holman Drive near Pacific Avenue. The before and after, we call that alligator cracking, if you can see that first picture. And it was completely reconstructed so that we have that brand new asphalt surface. The second set of photos show an area where the sidewalk was added. You can see that there's gravel there, and we have now installed sidewalk as well as a storm drain. You can kind of sort of see the storm drain off to the right there. That's some improvement. And then the third set of photos show the roundabout itself that included an overlay. You can see that we have, the cracking in the roundabout paving and then a nice fresh asphalt surface after the project was completed. So these are projects that are going to be in construction in 2025. I probably won't go over the entire list, and I only have 7 that I'm going to go over with slides. There are currently 10 projects that are currently in construction. We're going to tell you about several of them, and then overall, for the year, we have 20 projects slated to be constructed this year. The first one we're going to start off with is the Madrona and Westside pH treatment project. So this has a project timeline through the summer of 2026. This project includes 2 different sites. The first is aeration water treatment facility at the Madrona Wells facility off of Millbank Drive Southeast. This is in the city's urban growth area. It includes a new treatment building with the aeration system, pumps, piping, electrical controls, and instrumentation, and a new permanent standby generator. It's going to be finished off with new landscaping and irrigation and fencing. That second site you can see is very different with the trees in the background off to the right, and that is the West Side College Street well site. Works there include similar components to the Madrona site with a new treatment facility building, a packaged aeration system, pumps, piping, valves, fitting, and instrumentation and controls. Another project that's currently under construction is what we call S10 Generator. That stands for Source 10, Generator Well Site and Site Improvements. This is near Parkside Drive and Yelm Highway. The project includes rehabilitation of an existing vertical turbine well pump with a submersible pump and rehabilitation of the existing well. There's a replacement of an existing hypochlorite metering and monitoring system. It's going to be a new generator and stormwater piping and restoration activity. So that first picture off to the left shows the actual well casing being lifted out of the pump building, out of the overhead hatch. You can see some of the steel piping off to the side near the bollards that are there. That center photo shows you, this is the same site, of course, the center photo shows you a location where the stormwater piping was going to go out into this, underneath the sidewalk and out into the street. And then that third picture shows actually where the well was, is that piping that's coming out towards us. And that used to be where the pump was and where the well is actually located. Okay, this next slide shows you the College Street Northeast Extension Project. This project has a timeline through summer 2026. You can see the aerial view of what will be the future roadway. Hopefully next year we will be able to show you a paved surface at that time. That area that's off down to the bottom is where the new pond is going to be. And then the second photo actually shows that same exact location where the pond's going to be, just on the ground level. Of course, this project, hopefully we're all familiar with, it extends College Street Northeast from 8th Avenue to 15th Avenue. It builds a new three-lane section with sidewalks. It includes reconstruction. And we're also going to be doing the piece of 6th Avenue from Sleater-Kinney to College Street Northeast. There's improvements and replacements to water lines, sewer lines, the installation of the new pond, of course, and there will be a new T intersection at 6th Avenue and College Street Northeast. Another project you're probably familiar with is Greg Cuyio Park. This one is currently being constructed. This is, of course, an aerial of only a portion of Cuyio Park. It doesn't show the forested part. The plans for this phase are to include a new parking lot, including illumination. There's going to be tree removal and new landscaping, a new ADA-compliant playground, a picnic shelter, signage, an 18-hole disc golf course, 100 acres of soft surface trails, and 5 acres of hard surface trails. So there's long lead items for this, so they're going to be installed after the summer of 2025, but the substantial completion for this is anticipated in the summer or fall 2025.
Why do we measure trails in acres and not miles?
That's a great question. You know?
The trails there are 3 different types of trails included in this project. They're all different widths and surfaces, so the acreage is a surface level measurement to capture those different width trails. in the
I've
system.
seen that number before, the approximate miles of trails, but I don't have it off the top of my head.
The main loop, the vehicle trail that goes around the disc golf course is approximately 1 mile, and then all the tertiary trails on top of that.
Illumination,
Yes, in the
Yeah,
parking lot.
right there in the parking lot, yeah.
yeah. How far away does the power have to come from?
We're working with PSU right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, in order to get the power there.
That's gonna be a ways, potentially.
Yes.
I'm sure it's off of Carpenter.
Yeah. Junction post.
Okay, this next slide shows 3 different projects. So that first one off to the left shows the 400 pressure zone transmission main. That's an open trench on Pacific Avenue Southeast. Pacific Avenue Southeast, this particular project is from 15th Avenue to McAllister Court Southeast along Pacific Avenue. It is a WashDOT, within the WashDOT area. And this project was actually intended, the reason why we're doing it is because we're preparing for installing a roundabout at the intersection of Pacific Avenue and McAllister. WashDOT's going to be installing a roundabout there at some time in the future, so we're preparing for that to lower all of our things and putting in stuff before that project goes in. That middle photo is a photo of some work that's being done along Marvin Way for the 23-24 manhole rehabilitation project. And that one was at various locations throughout the city, so you might have seen some traffic control and things in some of your neighborhoods. And then that third project is a photo of some valves ready on the street to be installed on the pipe for the Marvin Road Utility Relocation Project in Thurston County. So we have an ILA with Thurston County, so this project is actually being done to address a road alignment change between Pacific Avenue and 22nd Avenue Southeast. I'm going to turn it over to Ashley.
All right. So we had the pleasure of touring this job site with a few of you last week with Lacey Fire District. So you may be familiar with the current status of the site in that way. This photo on the right shows the aerial of construction with I-5 just on the corner there on the bottom right, running alongside the property. Of note, this photo is already out of date. They've made significant progress in that amount of time, including nearly completing the metal roof structure that we anticipate will be another week or two before that'll be fully in place. And then on the left there, you can see some of the brick veneer going up. The main exterior activities at this point are metal roofing, weatherproofing, and then exterior finishes, as you can see there. A major milestone was reached in this last month where both buildings are now dried in, essentially. And so we can begin all those interior finishes that are subject to weather conditions now.
So the shell's done.
Quite a bit on the interior.
I would, yeah.
And quite a bit of the interior. Yeah, a lot of the interior is completed too. Yeah.
I would say the shell is not 100% complete, but it's effectively dried in to make those finishes complete, yes. So just a couple of photos here. We could talk all night about work ongoing in the police station, but on the left you'll see this is kind of the main corridor on the upper level as you enter the secure area. So you can see the exposed CLT roof panels there. Those will be clear coat finish, so they'll remain that warm color when the building is complete. Primarily polished concrete through that hallway there. And then you can kind of see the light peeking through above the metal framed walls. That'll remain a clear story window to let in that natural light in the main corridor. And then moving to the middle photo, that's inside the firing range. So we'll have an 8-lane firing range in there. The shell is complete in that section, but there's a significant amount of work still to remain, including acoustical panels and baffles and things of that nature. And then on the right, you'll see, in contrast to the picture of the upper level, that's a snapshot of the fitness room on the lower level, but just to show a little bit more of the industrial feel that exists on the lower level and not that kind of warm public space as much. Right now, the building is scheduled to be substantially complete in October of this year, and that's dependent on installation of permanent power and then long lead items such as the elevator and automatic transfer switch, generator, et cetera. So those things dependent, we are tentatively scheduled to occupy the building first quarter of next year.
Go ahead.
Was there some delay with the generator? Has that been resolved, or are we still kind of waiting to find out if the generator's going to come in timely?
It is
So-
scheduled to be received on time
Yeah.
currently.
So
the October deadline.
there's such a long time on the generator that we ordered it a lot at a time. We actually had a congressional direct allocation from Representative Strickland, and that was in last year's budget. When the continuing resolution went through, it wasn't included. It's still unknown if we can get it into a future budget for, say, 2026 budget. We won't know that until it gets closer to the continuing resolution running out in September. And so I don't think anyone can tell us if that's going to be in there. However, this is such an important piece of equipment that we're going to have to find a way, one way or the other, to pay for it. So, because this is going to be our emergency management center, and of course, with emergency management center, you need power to coordinate with the region. The deputy mayor, myself, and the city manager, along with the leadership of the Lacey Fire District 3, had a tour last Thursday. And I just want to say what an amazing job you guys are doing. It is an absolutely beautiful building that's going to serve our community so well in the future. It's just like, it's almost embarrassing going and looking at our existing police station, compared to for this beautiful project. So when I think, before it gets open, I think maybe sometime, late summer, I think, we can do a tour with a whole council. We should, when it gets, by then, we'll be a lot farther along, so.
So we are going to go over some of the upcoming 2025 construction projects. We have handed out in front of you a 2025 project map page. What this page actually shows is both the construction projects that are going to be done this year, as well as the design projects that are in the process to, of course, be constructed in the 2026, 2027, 2028 future years. So that's what this map shows that we've handed out. And also of the various items and the things that were put it under, like the roads and the reclaimed water and stormwater, et cetera. So for the upcoming 2025 construction, I won't read the list for the most part, but there's a lot of lift station, replacement or rehabilitation projects. We have some transportation projects that we're going to go over. And then, of course, we have some facility projects, the Lacey Veteran Service Hub, Woodland Creek Community Park Bridge, the awnings. We have another well rehab project that's going to be coming up, and a couple well projects.
Can you explain what those lift station awnings are? I see that we're doing quite a few of these awnings throughout the community. I'm just not sure what that is.
So the newly constructed lift stations that we are either rehabilitating or building new have awnings included in the design. So this is more of a retrofit of our older lift stations that have exposed cabinets to weather. So when maintenance staff goes in, opens those cabinets that are energized, it gives them some protection from the elements without having to set up temporary facilities to do that.
That makes sense. Thank you.
So first one we're going to go over is lift station 11. That contract scope you can see there, that is existing wet well mounted wastewater lift station. We're going to convert that into a submersible wastewater lift station. We're going to install sewer force main, gravity sewer pipe, various appurtenances and improvements such as valves, connections, and everything that has to do with the lift station. This site has been upgraded with the new emergency generator, so thankfully that won't be one of the things that we have to install. This contract is being currently routed, so it is anticipated to hopefully start either late April or early May. That's what we're hoping for. Lift Station 23 is a project that is currently out to bid right now. The contract scope includes a new submersible wastewater lift station. We're going to decommission and demo the existing wastewater lift station, install sewer force main, gravity sewer main. The thing about this project is it butts right up to the College Street Northeast Extension project, where we are putting a sewer force main up to a certain point, and this project connects right after that and goes north. So the site itself has experienced degradation due to settling corrosion. So this project's going to bring it up to current standards and help with future capacity. So hopefully when the city of Lacey grows. This does go past the Pleasant Glade Elementary School in Thurston County off of 20th Way Northeast. So this project, the 8th Avenue Rehabilitation Transportation Project, is a street reconstruction that includes storm drain improvements, including a new valley gutter and striping. It is behind a shopping area, starts at Sleater Kinney Road. A lot of people don't know this is a road, and it goes all the way to the Lacey Chamber of Commerce. So I'm not sure if I can mention this, names of the, I just wasn't sure, so I didn't. So it's a shopping area, if you can envision that area, from Sleater Kinney all the way down to the Lacey Chamber of Commerce is the 8th Avenue Road Rehabilitation. And that one is also out to bid. It does look
Yeah.
like a parking lot.
It doesn't look like anything behind there, and it hasn't for years. You can, like, that's always been kind of like a little shortcut you can go in, but you never realize it's a road until that construction was done right there on the corner. Now you can tell it a lot better. Yeah.
Urban gutter,
Yeah.
yes. So the next project is the Sleater Kinney Road and 14th Avenue Southeast intersection improvements. The contract scope for this is a replacement of curb ramps with ADA curb ramps, the removal of overhead hanging flashing stoplight. You can actually see that in the picture in the center. We're going to have that removed, and the installation of 4 new LED light flashing stop signs. Those will be one in each corner. And we have to wait for PSC, before this goes out to bid, we have to wait for PSC to actually take down the poles, move the poles, and then reconnect a lot of the wires. So we're in the process of waiting for them to do that.
Reconnect above ground?
Above ground, yes, in this case, yes.
So there's a question.
Oh,
Yeah, I think my question was along the same lines, just is there an opportunity to underground some of those power lines during the project?
that would be great, but the plan is to put it up above ground. We are going to connect.
It's just a spot project, so, you know, if had a longer run, longer project, then we,
That's got to be the longest-running four-way light in Lacey's history, right there.
Yes.
Does everyone know where that's at? It's been a four-way stop, the four-way blinking light for as long as I can remember.
The next project is the Ruddle Road pedestrian crossing. The contract scope for this is to construct a pedestrian crossing on Ruddle Road Southeast, which will include flashing beacons and, of course, installation of new curb ramps that'll be ADA compliant. The project is between 29th Court Southeast and 30th Avenue Southeast along Ruddle Road.
When's the completion date for that project?
That one, we're hoping that it'll be completed by early 2026.
Okay. That's when I can stop taking my life in my hands and running across
When
that
you
street.
cross that road.
Me and my kids. It's great.
So another project that's going to be going out is the Veterans Hub ADA improvements. This provides for ADA accessibility in the existing Veterans Hub building. It includes installation of vertical platform lift. There's actually a picture of an example of what that looks like. It'll upgrade doors and plumbing, and it has improvements made to the side for ADA parking stalls and routes to the building entrance.
And we did receive a grant for a lot of this, so.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that, as I remember when we were talking about this project, and how we're gonna get funding for it, and we'll,
Yeah, it's a really important part of it. We knew that from early on, that it wasn't the best ADA accessible building, but the SPSCC has been an amazing partner over at the Hub. We couldn't have done any of this really without them being a partner from the get-go. So, we've done a lot of improvements to this building, but we've also had a very amazing landlord in the process.
And this is the last project I'm going to mention. This is the 2025 sidewalk repair project. You can actually see this map shows a lot of locations. I know they're tiny little dots, but there are a lot of locations where we do have sidewalk repair. We're currently in the process of determining locations to include in the contract. We have a budget of this year for $1.5 million. Just so you guys know, we take the worst first approach. We did a study that measured the offsets of the sidewalks. In the process of figuring out the worst areas, we have to go through and systematically visit every single site to determine if there is, even though it's not an offset, it might be a ramp that needs to be removed, and so somebody has to personally go and visit each site to determine if the ramps are the worst or the actual offset measured at a certain distance is the worst. So, an additional info for this project will be given at the August presentation on the Transportation Benefit District Report, and that's an annual report that comes out.
On behalf of a lot of people who are in wheelchairs and, for most of us, this isn't a big deal. But if you're trying to get around town in a wheelchair, this is a huge deal. It really is. It's, it's one of the things that I hear about, quite often. And so I just want to thank, for making this a priority, because it really is important on the quality of life for a lot of our community members. So I look forward to seeing this report in August, and, a committee report to ongoing sidewalk replacements as well, because, it just really is so important for the quality of life for our community.
Thank you. So on the next slide, I'm going to pass it over to Ashley to talk about the design process and overview. Again, this map in front of you does have a lot of design projects that are in the queue.
Thank you. So tonight, I'm just going to give you a really high-level overview on all the background that goes into these projects. There's a lot of work that goes in before we ever get to this conversation of an update of what's happening in construction. So just kind of a general understanding for council on the steps to get here and the work involved. The 5 main phases of any project are shown here. Initiation is the first step that includes defining what your project scope is, what the goals of completing that project will be, and any limitations. The planning phase is arguably the most important, at least from my perspective. Deandra may disagree. Where the cost of the project is determined, any resources needed, the duration of the project, et cetera. And then execution is carrying out that plan, so essentially construction in most cases. Monitoring and controlling is watching your scope, schedule, budget during that execution phase as an ongoing process. And then closure is the formal conclusion of the project and making sure all the deliverables were received and was completed as intended and promised. So beginning with the first phase of initiation, these projects start well before we even get to a budget request. Typically it's a CIP plan, primarily for transportation and utilities, but more for parks projects that are new or facilities capital improvements. We have a kind of an intake form that identifies all the components that would be included in a project charter, as well as assigning a priority for that project based on needs. So to some degree, there's a first in, first out approach on how these are executed. However, if there's a safety need or an emergency repair or something like that, it would be a higher priority project in the queue. So once that project is realized as a potential project and included as included in the budget request for the upcoming year, it's assigned as a card on either the Transportation Utilities Work in Progress Board or the Capital Facilities and Parks Work in Progress Board, and this is a mechanism we use to track progression of these projects over time. So I'm not going to go into detail on this board here, but you can see each square in these various colors represents an entire project assigned by when they are expected to be executed. Moving into the planning stage of any project, typically this phase that includes design can take 2 years on average. If it's a smaller, less complicated project, it could be a few months to a year. Larger projects like a roundabout or major roadway project could take several years. So that's part of the scope that's defined here. What I'm showing on the screen is an example of a very early project schedule with milestones identified to kind of determine what that planning process will look like. This is actually a very early iteration of the police station project. So you can see we identified the major milestones that would be associated with that, including any risks and communication needed, like public outreach and when that would occur. Overall permitting and approval, and then when our final intended goal would be for occupancy in this case. Once that's identified, we would move into a more detailed schedule, which breaks down each of those milestones into a number of tasks, including specific permits, design review, bringing a consultant on board, et cetera, and then assigning each of those tasks to either a staff member or a consultant, if that's applicable. So very quickly went through the planning process. I just want to show you each of those cards that we talked about on the work in progress boards are represented here with a bullet. These are projects that are already in design currently or approved to be in design once resources are available through 2026. So here's just a reflection of the utility projects upcoming design to begin construction in 2026 and beyond. These are the transportation projects in a similar circumstance, and facilities and parks projects that are all anticipated to begin construction within the next 2 years. And with that, we'll open up to any questions, if there are any.
Any questions? Lots of work to be done.
It's helpful
Okay.
to know just how much work is happening to lead up to a project that we see in process, right? There's 2.5 years leading up to breaking ground on a project. And that's conservative, right? So it's good for us just to keep in mind that there's probably dozens of projects in those phases where we can't see it yet, but it's coming. So thank you for the update.
Yeah, construction is somewhat the tip of the iceberg is what you're seeing. So when you consider design and all the other elements that.
Or the
Ashley
last
mentioned.
mile of a marathon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. Our next agenda item is our economic investment strategy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good evening, Mayor, council members. Thanks for having us back with you to talk about our economic investment strategy. If you all think back a long time ago in 2024 in December when we were talking about budget, we did an initial presentation on these dollars as a part of our budget conversation for 2025 and brought to you some high-level ideas for ways we could invest in terms of our economic development investment strategy. What we are here today to talk about is those ideas that we talked about back in December, but with a little bit more, as we've been talking about internally, meat on the bones, but some more details on them. And I will hand it over to Wesley here shortly to talk about that, but also to get your feedback in terms of priorities in terms of these investments moving forwards. So with that, with that, I will hand it over to Wesley, and Sarah's here as well, and we will go from there.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. For the record, my name is Wesley Nguyen, Economic Development Coordinator. So these are the 5 strategy or investment we're looking at in the future. And like Director Vanessa mentioned earlier, she brought these opportunities back in December, November last year. And so, again, we just want to bring some meat to the bones and have this conversation with you. So these, again, Huntermore Park Improvement Project, Midtown Placemaking, Community Placemaking, Pacific Corridor Improvement Grant Program, and Opportunity Sites. And I will get into more detail of these projects in a bit, but I just wanted to highlight these things. And then the next slide is the costs associated with these projects. These are estimate costs currently, as well as FTE, some that we do have already working in the city, some we might have to hire if we were to do these projects. But 2.85 is the FTE for these 5 projects.
And I wasn't necessarily planning on this, but coming off the heels of the presentation that we just had with Public Works, they talk about what's involved leading up to a construction project and a construction project. That's where a lot of these numbers in the background lead to, so it actually was a great intro for us, so thank you.
Yes, thank you, Scott. So the first project, again, is the Hunterman Park Improvement Project. Now, this project derived from 2 different study or strategy. One is the one is the Woodland District Strategic Plan draft in 2013, in which CED team is collaborating with Park Department to modernize and improve the Hunterman Park. The project will directly implement the placemaking improvement, identifying the Midtown branding as well, in an effort to update the Lacey Midtown and enhance the amenities of the district to serve the current folks as well as future park user. The update to the park are intended to support the vision of the branding program to create a place that is visible and memorable and improve the identity of the city. City staff will work to project manage the capital improvement project with design and execution. CED and Park are currently working with landscape architect to develop the park concept. And the initial concept include urban water aesthetic, memorable seating area, and a cool light to create a Instagram-worthy location. So the project is expected to be approximately $1.6 million. This amount excludes, again, Public Works FTE. We have submitted funding requests to the federal budget for about $600,000 for planning and design dollar. If it gets approved, our total investment would be around $1 million.
I know we have a federal ask in here, and we also have a state ask in here. And at this point, I feel a little bit better about the state ask than I do the federal ask. The one thing, I'm really in favor of updating Hunterman Park. And one of the reasons when I was back in DC and talking to our federal delegation, and also on the Hill here talking to our state delegation, is that this area in particular, our Midtown area, is having a lot of multifamily housing come to it, which has been a strategy that we've had for a long time. Well, if you're going to have this much multifamily housing in this area, then you need the public space to complement it, right? Because this is now their backyard. This turns into sort of their backyard. So it's not only there for the community, but it's there to serve the local residents, which is something we've never had to worry about in the past because we didn't have the multifamily there. But we're going to quickly see the multifamily come online right across the street. The next phase of the multifamily in the parking lot right on the other side of Hunterman Park is in the works and going through the process. I'm really curious to see what the ultimate design strategy is going to look like here, because we've talked about having some water features, and I think that's anytime you can get a little water feature, I think it's nice for for the kids and for people to cool off in the few months that we do have summer. But the one thing that's always been an issue at Hunterman Park is, and this goes back to how we acquired it. We acquired it in 2 parcels. The first parcel we acquired is the parcel on the right, and that's when we put the stage area that we've used a lot over the years. And then we acquired the other parcel, and it totally threw off the design of the whole park, because that is not the ideal location for the stage any longer. We do a lot of things with that stage during the summers, and it's focused at an area that is the smallest part of the entire park. So it really doesn't make any sense. Where the stage really needs to be is on the top right-hand corner. It's actually on a hill up there, which makes it perfect. So it'd go up a little bit higher. And then if it was, actually, we could just move it forward up in that corner and facing this way, then you could take part of that entire field in the center for music in the park, for concerts, for all the things. And you actually kind of want it to be that way. And so this is something that we haven't ever really talked about. It's not in this 1.6 early on estimates, but it's my opinion, if we're going to improve this park and turn it into sort of what we've always wanted it to be, then you first have to you have to make it functional first. And it will no longer, it's not functional the way it's laid out now.
And it's not like you're gonna be getting rid of the stage area. That could be like covered area.
No,
for-
you just need to move the stage area.
One of the things is Hunter Park's been a jewel in the community, has a lot of events and festivals located there, music in the park, moving the park, and it's functioned very well. Now, as we see things growing up, and this is built to the original master plan for the park, but now we're doing some incremental improvements. The plaza proposal here comes out of the implementation strategy of the Woodland District Strategic Plan with work we did for branding the Midtown area.
Right.
And that's what this first step is, but what you're talking about, Mayor, is very well said, and it's that'd be looking at that full master planning of the park at some point in the distant future, what that change looks like in current day dynamics. And so we wouldn't be able to incorporate a lot of this stuff right now, but that'd be a planning process we want to go through, especially as more residents get in there. We can have some public engagement. How do you want to utilize this park? What's the best events? How to best lay out to complement some of the work we're doing today.
I see where you're coming from. I'm just saying, to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense just to put a little patches on it. I would, if it was up to me, I would make the investment now to how can we best utilize the overall park? And to me, that is moving the stage so we can better utilize the entire park for the purposes that we use right now. And so I don't know how much that's going to cost. I don't know what it's going to take, but I think we should at least look into it from a planning side, so we have that number, so we can know what the long-term layout of the park is going to be, because it changes everything. If you move the stage to where it should be, the layout for the rest of the park completely changes long-term. But if you don't do that now, then you're making.
And that's something too, that council would like to hold back on this particular project proposal, to say, hey, we're going to take a planning process to reevaluate the whole master plan of the Hunter Park and retool. That would start a planning process, which, going back to that we just heard about construction design. Now you're looking at a year or 2 year, once you program it into the workload of current process, and it'd be something that'd be several years out before we'd see some implementation. Because we want to go through a public process to make sure that, one, we're meeting the needs not only of the future residents that are coming in there, but also the various clubs and service providers and community partners that utilize that space, as well as programming for parks and recreation. But that would be a process that we would have to undertake that is well worth it. And it's just a question is, do you want to hold off some of these improvements that were identified through some previous planning processes and till that time that we do a full master plan step?
I think it could be as simple as keeping the stage for covered area just for, bad weather or whatever, and just erecting a new stage. And so maybe it's just adding a new stage in a more strategic place that works better for community events.
And we can also get through the rest of the proposals, because at the end of this, we're going to want to get direction from council. Where do you want us to focus our efforts as well? Because it's going to be based off of conversation you're just having. Also, though, staff resource and cost, and how do we best strategically move forward some of these initiatives?
Well, I know the cities, for this $1 million, we're talking about putting some money in state, federal. I think there's so many up in the air questions about that. I mean, we could easily put it in some splash pads here without, without much of a change, and that would be a huge improvement on day one. But I think we should master plan it and do it right instead of patch it along the way.
And part of the, because there's two impetuses, and you just reminded me of the second one, as I mentioned, it was part of the Midtown branding about doing some amenities to the Hunter Park to enhance what's already there.
Mm-hmm.
And the second item was the capital replacement of the boulders out there that were play equipment to create some type
Yeah,
of,
that
wouldn't be a
needs to happen.
splash pad-esque, but it'd
Yeah.
be some type of interactive water feature that can also complement an extended plaza and place for people to just sit down and hang out and enjoy. As Wesley said, the Instagram spot.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of factors in there too.
Yeah, let's talk that through, yeah, go ahead.
I think I'm somewhere between the two of you on this. I hear what you're saying, and the design of the park as it is rather awkward for events and things. But I also hear, there's people coming in now, and I think it would be wiser to kind of do this in stages, go ahead and make some improvements now, like what you're talking about, but making them with an eye toward where we eventually want to go, so we're not tearing up what we do now. That
Yeah.
that it's logical steps toward
I
what you're talking about.
I totally agree. I think there's, like, those rocks need to go. I mean, I don't know what those rocks are, right? Those rocks need to go. So, like, that needs to happen. But I just want to, we should be thinking long-term. Like, how does this really look like long-term with a stage where we all know it should probably go? And so, especially when we know we're not going to maybe get all the funding this time around, we should sort of be planning for the future. Or where are you at, Robin?
First off, my kids like those rocks. But what we talked during the last presentation about the last mile of a marathon, I'm curious how far along we already are in the preparation for this project and how disruptive it would be to back up and start over if we did want to move the stage. Because I'm kind of with the mayor that it would be nice if we could shift the stage. But if we're like 3/4 of the way through the planning and design process for this, then maybe we do it in stages instead and accomplish these improvements now, which would still make for a much nicer park, with the shared recognition that eventually we do want to move that stage.
We're very early in our stage, but Sarah can add some.
Yes, so the Parks Department, or CED and the Parks Department worked together over the summer with HBB, the landscape contractor, to put together some preliminary concepts, really focusing on the area in front of the 640 building maybe, and a plaza in front of that building, with the thinking that the developer of that building has come in, they've done some interior renovations, there's a new restaurant going in on the ground floor. This plaza space out in front would open up a lot of opportunity for dine-in the park, new users, both from the residential that's coming online here in the next couple of months, to be able to use that space. So we really focused on that corner of that, I guess it's the southeast corner of the park, but they're all just conceptual designs, focusing on that location.
So, and then just to kind of, say, it's not saying that it's all or nothing. You could do these incremental improvements while
Right.
master planning the rest of the park, or the decision is to hold back from doing anything and do the master plan first, which would then delay these type of improvements right now. But that decision point is now because, as Sarah just mentioned, we're in a conceptual plan. We haven't gone into a formal process to.
I think the plaza, let's focus on the plaza. Let's work on that. That's where I think we'll have the biggest bang for the buck earliest on. But then start the master planning for the rest of it. So it's sort of two phases. Understanding where people are going to be sort of focusing long-term. I think that makes the most sense. So let's go forward with the plaza improvements and then start the process for the rest of it. Okay.
Thank you.
And I'm just gonna, yeah, as we were talking about timing and phasing, this is one of the reasons I asked Wesley to click to the next slide, is that, and you'll see this with each one of the projects, we have laid out what is the duration for planning and implementation, and then the different departments that are involved, and the number of staff members or contribution portion thereof of staff members that would be needed to actually implement this. And so the dollars and this chart and this timing is related to just the smaller portion of the park. So again, if we started another master planning process, that we'd have to build a whole nother, right, another chart to address that. But it doesn't mean it couldn't be done. It would just be a different scale and time, as you mentioned. So we're trying to show each one of these projects will take time and energy to implement each and every one. So that's what this
Yeah,
this slide's for.
and knowing that Public Works have a whole schedule of projects, I did not put a schedule when we will start these type of project, because it will depend on their resource as well.
Well, I think that's a good plan. Let's focus on the plaza, and then we'll start the master plan for the rest of it, as soon as time allows.
Thank you. So the next project is the Midtown Placemaking Project. So it's similar to the Huntermore Park Improvement Project. This project is intended to improve the identity of Lacey Midtown, particularly using the Midtown branding book, and that was done in 2019. There's potential to work with private developer on this project. And so the first step in this project is to design and install PED light pole in and around Woodland Square Loop and 7th Avenue. Brief consultation with Public Works colleagues give us an estimate cost of about $350,000, which include contingency costs. Another piece to this Midtown placemaking is the installation of banners to identify Lacey Midtown as a place to live, work, create, and play. And again, this banner design could mirror the utility box that was installed in 2013 that we did around the Midtown area. This project will directly implement placemaking improvement to identify in the Midtown branding program and further support the Woodland District Strategic Plan. And again, this is another table of the cost of the light pole and the branding, total about $400,000 for this project, excluding FTE. Okay, and then continue going to the next project, which is similar to the previous one, but this is called the Community Placemaking Project. And this project is adjacent to another project that I will talk about later down in the presentation, which is the 7th Avenue Roundabout Project. But the intent of this project is to create an engaging roundabout center art piece that speak to the city culture and heritage, and create a point of reference for someone thinking of our city. Just similar to Seattle, when you say Queen Anne, they know exactly where that is in Seattle. So if we have this art piece, when they say this art piece at the 7th Avenue turnaround, about people would know what that is, and not just Lacey resident, but other people outside of our city. Again, table for the cost, we estimate this project to be around $200,000, and will take about 1 year for planning, design, and 1 year for implementation. And then this project, the Pacific Corridor Enhancement Grant Project. This project is not so much related to public work per se, more of a business improvement project. So the intention is to revitalize few commercial locations in our city, targeting Midtown, Depot District, and the Woodland Trail corridor. These areas have older buildings that have older facades and could use a little bit of TLC. Our project is to help these business tenant and/or building owner improve the frontage around the location. We see similar program in downtown Auburn and Richland that have been very successful using this model. For this project, we're thinking about a grant program of a maximum of $10,000 with a matching contribution from the applicants. So, not exhaustive, but these are some example projects that people could apply for. Benches and bicycle rack, exterior windows and door replacement or repair, ADA accessible, restoration of signs, gutter and downpour installation, exterior lighting, safety enhancement. So all these could be eligible for this particular program. We still have a lot of work to do in terms of creating applications and criteria and stuff like that, but this is the area where we're looking to target along Pacific again. So, yeah.
I have a question. So let's say, for example, we do this and we, the fewest amount of businesses is gonna be 12, right? And-
12 to about 20. Hopefully, the maximum is 10, so they could apply for 5,000 or 3,000, whatever that project cost would be.
And if we're successful with this, do we plan to redo it in the future, or?
But this is what I would consider a pilot program, so if we're successful and council approve for more funding, we could definitely do more.
And how many businesses are like in that area that? It looks like quite a few, a lot more than 12.
Not more than 20,
Yeah. So,
Okay,
but not all of them are
yeah.
probably in need of support.
all right.
So I think the biggest deal here, and I appreciate what we're trying to do. I don't necessarily think we can get there from here with just doing a small grant program. What we need to think about is the Woodland Trail as an economic development driver for the surrounding businesses. If you go to other communities, and you've mentioned this, when you go on their major trail, you see businesses that are starting to populate based on pedestrian bicycle usage, of the trail. And so you're going down the trail, and all of a sudden the trail goes off, and boom, there's a little something, and you go down on this other side. That's not, when this trail was built, it wasn't designed to sort of support the surrounding businesses. And really, the businesses that are most impacted would be from College Street down to our city limits, right? That's the main area. But you have to think, because you go the other way towards the depot, and the city owns a big part of that. And then you don't have any really commercial businesses that are set for pedestrian, for access, all the way down the other way. And so you're really focusing the other direction. Right now, there's not, it starts with sort of access. The back end of the Walgreens and that whole part, it's oriented for customers to look at it from Lacey Boulevard. And so it's not pedestrian oriented at all. Then you get down a little bit farther and you cross. There is some opportunities, from the roundabout all the way down to the end of to Lacey city limits. But I think what we really need to understand is like what improvements that need to be made to the trail to make sure we can then capture some of that. So I think we're putting the cart a little bit before the horse here.
Well, and Councilman Dunning has his hand raised, but real quick, some of this has been identified when we worked through the form-based code program, and part of that form-based code was identifying the trail corridor and at certain intervals trying to create access to connect a trail to Pacific Avenue or Lacey Boulevard. And I think one project that implemented that, half of that, been built with the self-storage. There's a half of a trail corridor that goes back beside. But how do you make those connections to the trail, and how you look at that trail corridor to make it more attractive and comfortable for people to utilize and access to? So there's a couple of factors. So there's that piece. You can even tailor something like this enhancement program for those businesses that want to make the connection, a direct correlation to the connection to the trail, and focus it more on that than, say, a facade or something else.
Yeah.
So there are some that bones there from that history of some of the planning programs we have in the past to set the stage.
You know, from Slater Kinney down to our city limits, that's a bunch of businesses. They're all commercial, but you can't access them at all off of the trail. You have to go all the way down to, so that's not utilizing the trail very well.
And within district strategic plan as well as the form-based code, identify the Shales Western and the Karen Fraser Trail as connections all throughout the county that can bring people to that area.
Yeah,
So-
and so I think, what I'd like to see is let's start there. Let's start with access off of the Karen, off that trail to those businesses, and so we can start creating some of that. I think that's the best place to start. Like improving facades along the way, I don't think that's getting to what we're ultimately trying to do. But if we can focus on this from Slater Kinney to our city boundaries first and make some investments there, that makes a lot of sense. Then let's keep going down. Nick, Councilmember Dunning. Oh, go ahead, talk. Nope, I can't hear you, buddy.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. I can. We can hear you.
Give me 1 second. Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, sorry. I just have a quick technical question regarding the FTE allocations. I noticed on like Huntermore Park, for example, we have 0.2 FTEs allocated for maintenance, public works maintenance. But I would assume we already have some allocation for that because Huntermore Park is already established. I don't know if we're adding to that what currently is done, or that might have just been saying that's what it's going to need. And then like for the artwork roundabout example, the roundabout's not built yet, and there was no public works maintenance allocated for a FTE. So if I could just get some clarification on that.
I'll speak to Huntermore Park.
Sure.
There's items like splash pads, which would be very, very maintenance intensive. So to answer your question, the amount listed is above and beyond what we currently expend.
Okay.
Sounds good. Do you have any other questions?
Nope, that was it. I just want to make sure.
Okay. So I'm not sure where do you have a recommendation from
for the
the last part? Well, I guess,
enhancement? Because
yeah.
I think it's something we can, this is just, we're still at a high level, so we're trying to get a sense from council tonight of where we should be focusing our resources to bring back. And of course, we get through the rest of these projects and we'll come back at the end of the summer. So where do you want us to focus? Do you want us to focus on the Huntermore Park project, this corridor enhancement, or other things?
So my recommendation is, with Hunterman Park, let's start going on the pad in the plaza. For the Midtown, it's for me, the Midtown, the community placemaking, all, the other two. I think what I'd like to see, this gives us an opportunity, in my opinion, to engage the two largest landholders and developers in all of Midtown, which is Capital Development and MJR, right? I know for a long time Capital Development has been talking about being part of Midtown. What does that look like? And what I would like to do is sort of reach out to them and say, hey, what, as the largest developers in this areas, we're trying to make this area more attractive, and create some identity. Let's work together, like maybe a public-private partnership. We're willing to bring in some money, and what would you like to see? Because it affects them the most. They're the two largest developers, and we're here saying, we have dollars, we want to improve this, all in Midtown. What would you like to see? Because maybe I'm missing something like this. Maybe, they're the ones that are dealing with what would they like to see? And I think we could do that pretty early. We could contact them and set up some meetings pretty early and saying, hey,
Well,
this is our plan. And then after hearing from them, let's maybe go for, reconvene, saying this is what we heard from the developers, and have a better idea going forward.
That's something that kind of plays into the next couple of slides about the opportunity sites. That could also fold into with the community planning. And with the opportunity sites, go ahead and move on to those slides. These are areas that are more, not indirectly in city. We can do a lot of things to support that work. We have to work with the property owners. There's a lot of other factors in there. So that's where those conversations come. Probably segue over to let Vanessa kind of expound on that if she would like to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll start with, we absolutely are talking with these property owners and ongoing talking with these property owners. In addition to, in our economic development group, always talking and communicating with future potential businesses, developers, and trying to coordinate and connect them together, especially on CDC's property.
And just to go back, for the branding work, there was a steering committee on that branding work, and MJR, Mike, was on that steering committee.
Yeah. So in terms of the dollars that we're talking about in this program, one of the things that I think we want to be strategic and think about is as we do our, day-to-day economic development efforts in terms of continuing to have those conversations with these property owners, among others, as well as potential new businesses, retaining businesses, is to know that we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know who's going to come knock on our door. And we have developable properties. We do have key properties. And that's why we call these opportunity sites. And when that person comes and knocks on our door, we want to have some flexibility and some ability to be nimble with our investment choices so that we can say, oh, you know what, let's partner. Let's build this partnership. Let's do something together. Let's make this great. And as the city, we can do that. So when we talk about, at the end, there's a summary slide here that talks about kind of the projects we've gone through, our potential opportunities for investment. We also want to think about the unknown. And that's what these opportunity sites really are about. It's the unknown. It's the who's going to come knock on our door and making sure we have that ability to be nimble and reactive and bring in that person when they show up or when we get a hold of them and they say yes, right? So that's really the other piece of this puzzle. It's what we don't know today, but the ability to be able to capture that opportunity when it comes before us. So with that, do we have the summary slide, or is this first?
The summary slide.
Is it after that? Okay. Well, we can do the recommendations and then go to the summary
I think
slide.
go back. I think the opportunities sites are back.
I got a little out of order, I think.
There you go.
That's okay. Yeah, so these are the 4 opportunity sites, and I mean, you brought up some, but Miles Sand and Gravel site, across the highway, kind of spreads the highway there. Carpenter Road, southeast.
Go back one more, and it'll show 2 more.
Yeah, oh, we're going different directions, so we're all good. Martin Village Shopping Center, and then South Sound Center, as you mentioned, two different property owners in that area. And so there is lots of opportunity potential on all of these sites. And another piece of this, which is not really part of this conversation, is we will be talking about, when we come back with comprehensive land use, what is our zoning? What is the future of these sites in terms of our land use designations through the comprehensive plan? I don't want to blend that too much with this conversation because this is really dollars and how we can apply those today. But it is important to think about, we will continue those conversations on a separate track with the council.
I do like how you brought up Miles Sand and Gravel though, because they can't have too much more mining to go, maybe 5 years max, if that.
Right. So we're monitoring that.
And that's their model, is once they get done mining, they usually, build commercial or, you know,
Use
they
the site
develop.
for something.
Yep.
Something
We want
really
to
good.
make sure that we engage with them so that it doesn't become maybe a residential opportunity versus a commercial. So, yeah.
Okay.
And now this is the staff recommendation. So we recommend that we ask council for priority on these three projects. The Hunter Park Improvement Project, the Midtown Placemaking, and the Pacific Corridor Improvement Grant Program.
And if you want to go to the next slide, that's with the summary, I think.
And the summary of the cost for them.
And the reason I was looking for for this particular slide was to make the point that right now we have about $2 million in this fund. And so if we went ahead and moved forwards with all three of these, we could find the time in the FTEs to put them to fruition, we would over expend those dollars. So by a little bit, right? So then that wouldn't leave us any dollars left to be nimble and to address potentially opportunities that come up. So that's where the conversation about priorities and what next, what we want to do next is super important to hear from the council in terms of how we want to address utilizing those dollars.
And just to clarify on the funding, that we set aside reserves for strategic investments, about 2.5 million. We already have some commitments out of that in the 2025 budget. Some of those are carryover for 2024, but in essence, we're around that 2.1, 2.3 of funds available. And just to emphasize too is, it's one thing, to look at those dollars and the timing to move these projects forward. It's all not going to be spent at once. However, as Vanessa pointed out, it's with those opportunity sites or other things that may come up we're not aware of yet, having some flexibility too, that we don't want to spend everything and all at once, and that we want to make sure we have some flexibility to meet some opportunities that we don't know about.
So, what we've already said is, let's focus on the plaza for Hunter Park. I think if we do that, just focus on the plaza for now, we'll have a better idea of the overall cost. We'll also see if the grant request from the state comes in, that will help. And so that will bring down that dollar amount a little bit. And so my recommendation was then focusing the rest on sort of the Midtown placemaking. I mean, we've been trying to establish an identity in this area since we incorporated as a city, period. And we took a huge step forward with actually naming it Midtown. The next step is public and private investment to build that branding, so you're in Midtown. And so, I think that is the biggest priority. Let's focus on one area, let's develop an identity, and once we've seen some progress, and once the community, the council, everyone feels like, yep, this is Midtown, we're in Midtown, this is a distinct area, we've hit our brand identity, then let's focus on some of these other opportunity zones. I think the 120,000 for the corridor enhancement, I just don't think we're there yet. I think we should focus on that Slater-Kinney they have businesses there that could utilize a trail today. And so I think that's where we should sort of focus on, maybe do a little bit of outreach and see what that looks like. What does it take to, go to the trail? There's a lot of brush in the area. You'll have to figure that out. That's some planning we can do to go down the line. But to me, it's Midtown placemaking. The next phase with the roundabout, we can start that right now, thinking about that right now, reaching out with the tribe, with the MJR, with St. Martin's University, but we already have an idea that's what we were going to do. That was going to be our entrance to Midtown, entrance into Lacey. But we have art dollars also set aside for that. So,
The community placemaking is something a little bit different.
It's a little bit different.
Than the intersection, but
I'm all about building on success. And when I first got on council and you guys were just before me, that was our eyesore. That was our, it was, it needed to be, how are we going to redevelop this? How are we going to get this a vibrant, community asset? And we've done a wonderful job, I think, in my opinion, because nothing was there. And so just build on that, build that success, and, you know, it's on our doorstep right now. You know, the other stuff is, you know, still, you know, a mile out of town.
I think we can meet, I think we can have some public-private investments in this area too. If the developer says, I want to see a bunch of street lights that go across the streets, blah, 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 it's like, okay, well, you know, it gives us an opportunity to work with them. You know, we'll bring in some money, they can bring in some money, and really make that midtown that everyone.
And going back to the Pacific Corridor Enhancement Program and talking about what the mayor has spoken about, trail connections, those type of things, it also, and you touched upon it, there's also a bigger project there too. We have to make sure that we're thinking about, strategic about and thinking about all the different issues, and that's opening up the trail, because it is a very intense brush corridor, and that's what I was referring to in terms of creating comfort and safety for people to utilize it. But also too, that's a big project, because it'd be a capital project, so that's something it is more of a longer view and plan for. But I just wanted to get a sense from the rest of the council with these priorities and the emphasis we've had for a long time on developing the Woodland District Strategic Plan, branding Midtown. Is that where you want to continue to focus with these project summaries or these recommendations going forward?
I like the idea of the stage being a little bit higher up on the other side. Part of the reason why I like it is because as it is right now, the stage specifically serves a section of the park, right? It doesn't encompass the entire park. So, and then the people who are walking behind the stage are more of a distraction than they are anything else.
But we know that's gonna be like a long-term deal. We're not gonna be able to focus on that right now, but.
Well, I'm not saying we focus on it right now, but maybe we can look at it and say, okay, what would it take to get there?
Yeah.
You know, for now. The Midtown placemaking is, part of the reason why I like that is because, you know, yes, we've been wanting to rebrand it. And we've done the tax exemption so that we can get more residential in there. So with the residential in there and our desire to rebrand it, the new residents are gonna help us rebrand that area in that's what it's gonna be called. And so for the price, I like the placemaking, because it makes sense and it will go in conjunction with all the new residents in that area, which will be really cool. As far as the trail is concerned, you know, I ride my bicycle on the trail, and sometimes I want to get off the trail and do something. Well, you can't. I mean, it's not like you can't, but it's not the easiest trail to get off of and go to, you know, well, what used to be Skippers and all that stuff over there and get off there and just go and grab something and get back on the trail, because most of it getting off the trail is not paved at all in a lot of cases, unless you're at College Street or you're just on the other side of I-5.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So you're.
I think the only direct connection to the trail is at the Olympic Crest Coffee Shop.
Yeah, and Chuck, negotiated to have that happen, which was smart.
I think I'd like to speak in support of certainly 1 and 2, but this corridor enhancement is such a small amount, and it's a pilot project. And I think one thing we can all agree on is we need our businesses to be inviting to be successful. And I think this can help set the tone for that. So I'd like to advocate to keep that in as well.
Councilmember, any thoughts?
I mean, I like aligning our Huntemer Park improvements with the development we anticipate in that area, because that benefits like the business that we want to see continuing to thrive there, and also community members that are going to be living in that area. You know, it's going to be their backyard, as the mayor said. I'm less keen on numbers 1 or 4. I do feel like we're missing something on this list, maybe like a number 3. But I thought there were 4. But, you know, I think Huntemer Park, from my perspective, should be the priority. I think that as we improve Huntemer Park, it will also become a little easier to give Midtown more of an identity, because that is sort of the heart of Midtown. And so as we draw people in, as we make it more accessible and more things to do out of doors during our nice weather months, Midtown will start making itself more. Because we're seeing development in a way that, you know, Lacey hasn't seen for the last 12 or 15 years. We've been trying to make it happen, and it's finally happening. So that's very exciting. But if we needed to save money and we couldn't do all of these at once, I would say Huntermore Park is my preference.
Councilmember Denning, do you have anything? Don't see. And so I really think like, oh, yeah. Do you have any?
Yes, I do.
Great.
I'm pretty much in alignment with what you were saying, Mayor. Number two is I think by far the most important. Even just the whole ambiance of that area, I think signage is the thing that's really probably the biggest thing that's holding it back from being even better than it is. One is obviously important. I just would not want to do anything that we're going to have to come back and redo. So if there's projects associated with that we're not going to have to then change in the future and, you know, kind of have to utilize more dollars for, that's the only reservation I have there. And then selfishly, my business is in number 4, but I just don't think it's enough money to make the impact that we would want it to have. So I think, you know, having a better plan for that overall long term before we move forward with it would be a better idea in my opinion.
So, yeah, go ahead.
So, you know, look, again, from where we started to where we are, we already leveled up, so let's level up again. You know, let's go to the next level.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think if we can, you know, Plaza, we all agree, improvements in the Plaza. If we start that right now, which we already have started some of it, we will know here that if we can get some state money, that will add to that, that will hopefully lower that price down, and we're just focusing sort of on the Plaza for now. Then we'll have a better idea of how much money we have left over, right? Then, you know, I really think there should be a focus on Midtown branding. I think that, you know, from what I can tell here as well, you know, the new lighting with the pedestrian focus, I mean, I think that's nice, but I mean, I would just, again, I would just like to check in and make sure I'm hearing from the cities, you know, the capital development and MJR, like, do you think this is the biggest bang for a buck to create because will that create the ambience? Like, when you look at that, will we know we're in Midtown because we have a little bit lower lighting? Maybe, I don't know, or is it, of course, more branding, but I think it's really a focus on pedestrian continuity through there, right? That with the sidewalks and the lighting and like that's what I think is really important.
Gotcha.
And I know this is jumping ahead again, and my apologies for jumping ahead in the slides, but one of the things that I know you all are aware of is we're currently actively working with Eco Northwest on a 5-year strategic investment strategy for economic development. And as a part of that effort, thank you, Leslie. Not only are we kind of looking at the data side of economic development, but also the soft data in terms of a focus group with businesses and conversations with stakeholders to really identify what are those projects. And so as we move forwards, you know, talking about priorities, focusing on Huntermore Park first, but maybe utilizing this study as well to refine, you know, 2 and 3 or 2 and 4, maybe as listed on that. In terms of, you know, do we spend, is that enough money on Pacific Core to really make a difference? Maybe there's another idea that we find through this effort that is similar, but not exactly the same. And we can bring that back and have further conversation on that as a part of that.
Yeah, they will come to do a presentation.
Yeah, well, perfect. So that's so right, that's within our time frame. So let's, focus on the Plaza, and then this other stuff, we can sort of work on some of behind the scenes and see what we can come up with. And then we'll have their update, and maybe that will lead straight to actionable items in the Midtown.
All right. And one last project I wanted to share, but I actually want our city manager to share this project.
So these are the other economic development issues, the strategic plan, and then, of course, the 7th Avenue Roundabout project, which is on the council's work plans for several years. So we wanted to make sure this was highlighted, that, you know, continued conversations. I just received notice yesterday from St. Martin's Abbey that they are ready to go forward with an MOU. Now we'll be looking to schedule that to come before council within the next month. As you see, this is one of those pieces that the mayor referred to earlier in the conversation about having this intersection at 7th and College, for one, to be kind of a gateway entry into the city, coming the College Street corridor, also a gateway entry into Midtown, 7th Avenue. If you remember the Woodland District Strategic Plan, it really started focusing on 7th Avenue as that potential primary street because it runs all the way over to Slater Kinney. Now it's updated from the Downtown 2000 plan, which identified 6, but it was shifted to 7th because 7th had its potential with the mixed-use development in around Woodland Square Loop. And so that creates that entry feature, protected left turns. Also very important, it creates a safe pedestrian crossing connection to the east side of College Street and St. Martin's University and students. As we know, that's been a big concern and priority for some time for the city to make sure we have a safe place for people to cross College Street. And eventually that could create some type of entrance pedestrian or other going into St. Martin's University campus. And so create a better, stronger connection between St. Martin's University and the cultural values it brings to the community and vice versa. So this is something that we'll be bringing forward to council. I checked with MGR Development, DM Investments, and they are also good with where the current language of the MOU is, so now bringing it forward to council. It's been a process. I think the first council presentation we had, Mike Raskin from MGR, myself, and St. Martin's University presented to council. I think it was probably during the pandemic, right when we started having Zoom meetings.
Well, it started off with a meeting between MJR, St. Martin's University, and really focusing on this creative, this area, what it can take. And that's when we switched from, well, let's focus on the 7th Avenue area, right?
Well, really, it started with looking at pedestrian crossing,
Yeah,
protected
that's
crossing
right.
down at Woodland Square Loop and the bus stop, but then we tried to figure out what this might be a better opportunity
That's
in our
right.
conversation with St. Martin's. And then, of course, the idea originally was have that roundabout. If you look at the pink picture up there, it was actually slid more onto St. Martin's property and in alignment. And it offset that MGR was proposing to build a plaza and some type of arches or some type of feature on the St. Martin's side. That's the big change in the agreement because St. Martin's was looking at that, they weren't ready for that type of improvements yet, or they want to have some time to plan their side of their master plan expansions. And so we ended up sliding the roundabout to the center alignment of College Street, so there's roughly equal property dedication being asked of from both MGR and the Abbey. So that part is equalized between those two partners, and then the city would build the roundabout intersection within the right-of-way limits. And then St. Martin's, Abbey, and MGR on their respective sides would do all the back of sidewalk improvements at the future when they're ready to do so. So that's kind of where that big change, and so I can bring this forward either to a work session or a council meeting to give more details of the MOU and provide either a written copy. But I want to update you on this big step forward because it's been about 5-6 years in conversations we're making to get there.
That's great news.
So,
Yeah.
and that makes a big difference, as everybody talked about, setting the tone in Midtown and one more step towards that goal.
Okay, yeah,
And that's the end of our presentation, so thank you very much.
okay. Well, I hope you got enough direction.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you
Great.
very
Thank you,
much.
council.
So next up is the Metropolitan Park District draft language conversation.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to invite Dave up, and I'm going to pass out a written copy of the resolution, so everybody can have a copy. The goal for tonight, as the council is aware, we've been having several conversations related to the Metropolitan Parks District and a series of decisions. And so we're now to that next stage of preparing the actual language for the resolution to set the Metropolitan District ballot measure. And so tonight I want to take an opportunity for Dave to go through the drafting of the resolution and what it contains currently in this draft. And a lot of it comes from language we had originally in 2018. And then after he's get a chance to go through that, then we want to talk about, answer any questions the council may have, but also talk about what type of flexibility the council would like to have in the use of these future dollars for the that would be collected through the Metropolitan Parks District. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dave to kind of give an overview of the resolution that he has drafted for us, and then open it up for some conversation.
Thanks, Rick. Good evening, council members. And so before you, I think you have either in your materials or the hard copy handout that Rick just provided. I'm just going to walk you through it real briefly. There's a couple areas I'm going to highlight, just make sure that everybody's on the same page with what the draft resolution indicates. So the first couple recitals are just context indicating that the city currently acquires park property and operates and maintains the same with general fund dollars. The second recital just, highlights the importance of parks for quality of life. Then we're getting into the next four recitals are kind of specific to more recent activity, which is, has been the community outreach that the city's performed, be it the Parks, Culture, and Recreation Board, along with city staff and a Parks outreach team. They did a 2-year public outreach and engagement. And then, of course, council, through passage of Resolution 1148 last year, created the Ad hoc Parks Improvement Funding Work Group. And then we're noting that that work group, after selection by the council, delivered a recommendation to this council recommending the creation of an MPD, which is, of course, a Metropolitan Parks District. Following that are some recitals just providing context of what an MPD actually is. So we've just got some quotes or not some quotes, but some paraphrasing of the section of the RCW that authorizes MPDs. So it's the last two sections where we're looking more towards the council's intent. And I'll let council know that I verbatim took this language from the 2018 resolution that council authorized at that time. At that time, the language here does provide some flexibility for the use of the funds. So I'm just going to go through it quickly. The second to last recital indicates that it's the city's desire to utilize these funds to expand maintenance, create new facilities, and operate those facilities. The intent of the council being to use those funds to supplement, not supplant, existing parks and recreation funds. And so that flexibility was created by the council for the 2018 resolution, and I've just used that here as well. The following recital, of course, indicates that, again, it's showing the council's intent that to minimize the impact of cuts in services to citizens using Lacey Parks and to maximize the ability of the city to acquire and construct additional parks, the city's desire is to place a proposition on the ballot. And so that there with the recitals provides the context for the resolution. And then you're getting into the actual meat of the resolution itself. Section 1 just provides an outline of what the proposition is, what the proposed Metropolitan Parks District is. It clarifies that it's 45 cents per 1,000, which is less than the authorized 75 cents per 1,000. The Section 2 is the call for election. This is mandatory language. Section 3, of course, is asking the auditor to administer the election, which is required. Section 4 then has the actual ballot proposition. I'm going to point out that at the very introduction to Section 4, it does indicate that you're directing the city clerk to deliver the proposition in substantially the following form with such changes as may be approved by the city attorney. So just understand that I don't have authority to just kind of go whatever I want to do, right, with amending this language. This is necessary, though, in case there's some spacing differences that the auditor wants or something very specific that needs to be changed. We don't want to get ourselves in a bind where we've got to come back to council. So it's just very, very minor details. I wouldn't anticipate anything, but that's what that language is there for.
Housekeeping.
Correct, that's right. And so then the proposition, this is the language that we have drafted for council. It would be proposition number 1. It would concern the formation of what would be called the Lacey Metropolitan Park District. And the purpose of that would be to provide ongoing funding to acquire, maintain, operate, and improve parks, natural spaces, trails, recreational facilities, and programs, to set the district boundaries as the city's corporate limits, to designate the city council as ex officio board of parks commissioners with all the powers as set forth in the RCW, and to authorize that board to set a maximum general tax levy rate at up to 45 cents per $1,000 of assessed valuation. And then it calls for the question, and this language, of course, is required by the RCW as well, either for or against the formation.
Up to, aren't we setting it at 45? Why would you set it up to 45? What's,
It could choose a lower amount, I suppose, but it couldn't be above. The maximum rate would be 45 cents.
sure.
Well, in the unlikely event that the valuation of the city goes down, wouldn't our levy rate go down?
No,
No?
no, we're setting it at 45 cents. That's what I'm saying, it's up to, aren't we setting it at 45 cents?
Well, yeah, so we have a finance director here that can.
So what will happen in reality is the Metro Park District Board will be established. The board will set the levy in November of this year if everything passes. So there's another action that actually has to happen in order to move forward with the property tax, so.
Okay.
I
So
mean, there
if
is
this
that option.
passes, they could choose, future council could choose to lower, it went, could be 40 cents, right?
Could be, yes.
It says just a maximum of 45 cents.
Right, so the discretion will be at the newly formed board's level. So that would be obviously the city council, but that'll happen sometime in November.
Oh, okay. That's new news to me, yeah.
Yeah, and again, as a reminder, then, this proposition does set this council as the Parks Board, so it would be the Lacey City Council that would make those decisions as the board. And so that's it.
Well, I'll jump right into it. We've had some conversations. I know you've been a little bit a part of this. But there's two things I kind of want to focus on, and then I haven't got the answer yet from the second part. I know you're looking into it. The first part is that if you go back to page 2, there's the two warehouses that we just talked about, or where it says, whereas the city desires to utilize these funds with that intent, later on, blah, 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 with that intent. I'm not comfortable with that language. I feel like it needs to be stronger because the community needs to know that we are passing this Metropolitan Park District not to supplant existing funds, but to expand maintenance, create new facilities, and operate those facilities, right? So the supplant language is really important. We talked a little bit about this. We had a recommendation that I think was a little too prescriptive. I don't think this is as prescriptive enough because I really think it's important that the public knows that we are not going to use these funds to supplant, right? And so I think, at the very least, I should say that I'm comfortable with saying the city will utilize these funds to expand maintenance, create new facilities, and operate those facilities with intent being used to fund, instead of desires to me sounds like, oh, we wish, we're on the best day, we're gonna desire to do that. I don't, that seems a little too wishy-washy. I like the idea of we're intending to use these funds, but I think we need to say the city will utilize these funds. And that's stronger, in my opinion, than saying we desire to utilize these funds.
I'm sorry, Councilman.
I mean, does that get to?
Well, no, I think I was playing around with some language as well, and changing the very beginning, it would keep the intent. But to say the city intends to use these funds to expand, create, and operate, and then doubling down on that, the intent being to to supplement, not supplant. And I'll look to the city manager and the finance director for maybe some worst-case scenario if the council makes a decision to not allow any flexibility. Because maybe some unintended consequences are, you certainly do use the funds to develop new parks and create new parks. At some point down the road, there could be an accounting issue as to whether or not maintenance for the new field at the RAC is being paid. That gets fuzzy down the road, and that could lead to some problematic.
What do you need to send the strongest message that we are going to use these funds to supplement, not supplant?
Yeah, I think it's pretty black and white. So I think maybe the question, and we discussed a little bit earlier, is does the council want future flexibility at all with the use of these funds? So let's say 10 years, 15 years down the road, there are budget shortfalls and we are looking for savings or to supplement operations and maintenance. So, if you look at the language, it feels like it's an all or nothing. Does the council want flexibility in the future for these funds, or does it truly not want that flexibility and it must go to these new programs, new maintenance, new facilities? So I don't know if I'm looking at it too black and white, but I think that's maybe something for
I
the
think I
council
want
to
more
consider.
security for the actual voter who's approving this or disapproving it, that this money will be spent directly the way we said we're gonna spend it, period.
We did the same for Proposition $1 for
Yeah.
police dollars.
So, yeah, so explain, that's a good point. We did a resolution for the Prop $1 that says we are going to use this money for these things.
Yep.
Does this hold it to the same intent or the same standard that we used it on that language? Because it
What we said is we would use it for law enforcement purposes. And so that would be all, the overall budget needs of law enforcement. So that going towards law enforcement. So it's a little bit broader than the language we have here where it's talking about, this is a little bit stronger in this resolution where it talks about the intent to use these funds to supplement and not supplant. Prop 1 resolution is we would only use it for law enforcement purposes and to maintain the integrity of the public safety.
I don't, I like what we're doing, and I like our intentions. I don't want to feel like, we have the possibility to stray from the intent, right? I don't want to, we're promising people better parks. We're promising people, newer parks and maintaining green spaces and all these different things. I don't want to see this money used for, a street project or that's not parks related. We have a lot of parks improvement on the schedule. We got the RAC Phase 3. We just broke ground on Cuyo Park. There's plenty to make sure that this happens, and we could, even if we use these dollars to acquire new park space, I don't need the flexibility to take these dollars outside of parks.
I think if we said the city will utilize these funds to expand maintenance, create new facilities, and operate those facilities with intent to use these funds to supplement, not supplant, I think that's pretty strong. We
I
are
agree.
going to use these funds for that reason.
Period.
I like
I'm saying head nod.
inserting will instead of desires.
Yeah.
It's firmer.
The desires is just too flip-floppy. It's like, oh, I wish we could have done that, but we're doing something else.
Trust us.
Yeah. We need to say, this is what we're going to use these funds.
Yeah. And again, just to be clear, these funds would only be used for parks purposes regardless. And
Sure.
what this is saying is we won't use it for existing, the way the wording needs to,
Yeah.
utilize these funds to expand maintenance, create new facilities, and operate those facilities. So it wouldn't be looking at using it for existing, with the intent to supplement, not supplant.
Yeah, I think that's strong language. Yeah?
And people kind of
Okay.
get the feeling that they're for sure getting what they're voting for.
Yeah, so then,
Expand the parks
Yeah.
and new parks.
that's what we say that's why we're creating it, that's why did all this outreach, that's what we're gonna do with these funds. Okay. the second question, and I think you have the answer for it, but I'm not sure. Actually, the county assessor reached out to me and said that you can write in a senior, an exemption for seniors, veterans, and low income.
Seniors and veterans.
Seniors and veterans from the MPD costs. So what we're trying to do is, obviously protect those who are struggling, in our community. But he said that you actually had to write it right into the ballot language. You're going to follow up on that for me, and we got a staff, and I read that, we got a staff, someone at the assessor's office wrote us back that says, no, you don't have to write it into it. They can actually just apply for it through the normal process, but it doesn't need to be in this language. Well, I want to make sure. Where did we land on that?
So
Because
got
I think
another-
that's really important.
We got some more information from Linda Rebick, who is the Chief Deputy Assessor at the Assessor's Office. And so under RCW 8436-381, that's the section that allows for exemptions for property tax for low-income seniors or veterans with disabilities, those type of things. And there's a section 5A that says paraphrase it here a little quick, but that there is also a person who's otherwise qualifies under this particular section and has a combined disposable income equal to or less than a threshold 3 is exempt from all excess property taxes. The additional state property tax imposed under RCW 84.52.065, which is state tax for schools, and the portion of regular property taxes authorized pursuant to 84.55.050, which is the levy lid lift statute, and approved by the voters. If the legislative authority of the county or city imposing additional regular property taxes identify this exemption in the ordinance placed on the ballot. So it ties it back to those levy lid lift actions going out to the voters. So that's where the assessor's office is telling us that that's the only provision you need to write it in is when we're proposing a levy lid lift. But for regular and excess levies, that would follow the normal procedures for somebody to make application to be considered exempt under those provisions in 8436-381. I do need to confirm with the assessor's office that that is the process for a low-income senior or a veteran with disabilities, that they just need to make application. They would still be subject to that process. That's the only thing I don't have confirmation on, but that is one thing I will check by the end of the week.
Yeah. I just thought it was interesting, where I received straight from the assessor that hearing that you had to actually write it right into this. Maybe he was just confused and thought this was acting like a levy lid lift, and it's not.
Yeah, because this is creating a separate taxing authority. It's a separate entity, Metropolitan Parks District, very similar to fire district. So it would be subject to those regular and excess levies that should be which should be under the purview of the assessor's office to make applications, reviews of low-income requests. But I'll confirm that that is the path for somebody.
Yeah, I think it's important because if for some reason we actually had to write it in and we didn't, that would be really unfortunate. So you'll double check.
I will double check.
We'll triple check and we'll make sure that's before the ballot language is done, that we'll have that answer for sure.
Yeah, because we don't want to inadvertently prevent somebody that needs assistance to get that assistance.
Yeah, and so I just making sure that's done.
Yep.
Okay.
So with that, we'll craft this up and bring this back forward to council for final action, either April 1st, and it would be subject to getting confirmation to the assessor's office. So thank you very much. Then also I wanted to take a few minutes to allow Ty and Shannon to kind of give a highlight of where we are on the communication strategy and go over some information that they've developed so far. So Shannon or Ty, I don't know who's going to.
Deputy Mayor, do you mind if I borrow this for a second? Thank you. Well, good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. We do want to provide you a high-level overview of the communications plan. And Ty, our communications manager, will go into more detail on the plans, but I wanted to provide just a general overview of some of the materials that we're going to be looking at. So I think, number one, just to highlight, the communications plan itself is intended to be an internal document, and Ty will talk about some of the benefits for it, but it is used for a platform for other external materials. So we've got in front of you today, and Ty's passing these around right now, but we have the communications plan draft. It is a draft. We are considering this a working document as we continue to learn more information. For example, changing some of the language that we heard here tonight with the resolution. And same thing with the external document that we have here, which is the draft flyer, which was informed by some of the language that was in the communications plan, but really trying to focus on a very high-level key messages of the communications. One thing I mentioned, these are drafts, these are living documents. We're going to continue to refine and edit it, and we're going to work with legal. We're going to be asking the PDC to also provide some review and maybe some potential feedback. And that way we can integrate this before we continue on with our tactics that are identified within the comms plan. And so we're here tonight just to review these and to see if there's any broad missing concepts that we should be contemplating as we're designing both of these materials. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Ty.
Yeah, thank you, Shannon. So briefly here, when I put together communications plans, I follow a general formula, and it's meant to be a document that anybody can pull from and anybody can understand, and then anybody can speak from. So when we have communication plans, they follow a general situation, whatever the issue is that we are tackling, whatever the initiative is, whatever the project is. We go into the audiences for that particular issue. And then a few key messages, what are the main points we're going to communicate with them. And following that is our tactics, our schedule, and how we're going to deliver those key messages. How are we going to communicate? And then following that is, of course, talking points and FAQs and other things. That said, with this particular communication plan, the element here is being neutral. So it's a very neutral communications plan. It's written in a way that the city is neutral in its position. Really, we're just here to provide information about the MPD and provide information going forward for anybody that is looking for it. With the tactics that we'll use, we'll empty out the communications toolbox of all the things that we typically do, the website, use social media, we have a number of newsletters. These are all things that we can use to get information out about the MPD. You'll see the draft flyer in front of you. That's kind of the main piece that kicks things off. And like Shannon said, that is subject to change. So communication plans and documents like this will change as we get the correct information or the changed information or whatever it is that we want to put inside. One thing I do want to draw attention to, though, with the tactics that we'll be using is we will be reaching out to a number of community groups, and there'll be Parks here that does that work. Those community groups are park users, pickleball groups, basketball groups, baseball groups, sports groups, dog groups, whoever uses our parks. And I'll leave it to Parks to explain how they'll be moving out with those groups and speaking to that. The other thing I really want to emphasize is that it is a neutral comms plan, and we'll be working with legal to make sure that all the messaging is in line with the resolution and in line with that very neutral position. That is about it. Really, I'd like to echo Shannon's comment. Is there anything that's missing, anything that we would want to add specifically?
Go ahead. Go ahead, and we'll start.
This is great. I think this is really well designed, neutral but persuasive, easy to read. I think anywhere we say what the rate is, the 45 cents per $1,000 evaluation, we should include the example of the average homeowner in Lacey, like a $500,000 home. So like if I got this in the mail and I was not committed enough to this bit to open it, even just this bullet point here, I would want that example, like the average homeowner in Lacey would have $225 a year, $1,875 per month. So that even if all I do is glance at the back of this and then put it in the recycling bin, I have that additional information about what it might mean to me. But this is really nice, so thank you.
Yeah, well, I can't take credit for that. It's the team that puts it together. So Donna does a great job putting those together, and the rest of the comms team really deserves the credit, as well as the folks in Parks.
I echo what Robin was saying, and I also think it's nice, rather than just using numbers, it is like, for the price of one lunch out a month, you get,
Yeah,
you know, to
But
put it in context with.
yeah. But is that too,
Yes.
yeah, we have to, that's
I don't think
too,
people like that language.
well, I think that's too, like,
Something.
pushing in some way, trying to
Too
prove it. Oh, you can
advocacy.
do this,
Yes.
but for the
Advocacy
price of
instead
that.
of
but we're now-
neutrality.
Because this has to be straight informational use only.
Yeah, and
does,
I'll
I
just
think.
offer, it's not persuasive, it's informative.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That's what this is for,
You have
supposed
to
to
give up
be.
something to get something, sort of deal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's-
And all these, are we gonna collect all these documents also as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Just to watch drafts.
this is just a draft, yeah.
If you want my opinion, it's like, for me, the first thing I'm gonna focus on is dollars and cents, right? And so if I'm seeing the, $300 a year, if I have or $225 a year, if I have a medium, the average house, right, in Lacey, I'm gonna look at what I'm gonna get, and the first thing I see is spray ground parks, and they're great. I want our kids to have fun, but that's like a low-ticket item for a pretty good price tag. And you're gonna get that, you're gonna get that sooner than you get anything else, right? Because it's a low price tag, a low price point. But people, when you're looking at hundreds of dollars, they wanna see stuff like sports fields, indoor facilities. They'll come later, because you have to build that money up, right? And the spray parks are gonna come, so maybe the order to me is, you're gonna get the moms and dads that are gonna go, awesome, spray parks, love them, I'll vote for yes. But the more,
Again, we can't be persuasive, we just have to be informational. I do think it's important to say, with this money, the intent is, this is what we're going to intend to spend those money on first, right?
Yeah, and I was just going to highlight on the order of the new park features and the maintenance as well as the map. This was all based on the feedback that was previously reviewed with the Parks Improvement Funding Work Group and the outreach group, and identifying what were some of the projects that were identified as top priorities. And that's how we started to build this informational. So you can see some of the things that are listed there were based off of some of the previous lists that were presented to council.
And we did talk about, it's our intent to make sure that there are improvements happening in all quadrants of the map. And I think that does this pretty good job, that shows the intent. If this was to pass, this is what we're going to be focusing on first. I do think that, for me personally, and I know this is a lot of people in our community is looking for this, as well as our new museum and cultural center. I know it's in the park plan at some point. It's not something we've talked about for a long time. I do think it should at least be highlighted, because there are a lot of people who said that this is a priority, for them. And I think spelling that out as a future identified project, I think is important, because I know that's a question a lot of people have had for a long time. When's the city going to do that? So it would also sort of fill in the middle a little bit more. I guess it's sort of right there, sort of right over there. But I think if you could at least put that on there, it would let people know that that is still a priority for the community. So.
can I finish
Go
my
ahead.
thoughts?
Go ahead.
All right. What I was gonna say is I love the illustrations on the spray parks, because that's not just a, hey, run through a sprinkler, that's like awesome. and you can see it firsthand, right? And then I love the potential projects because it touches on pretty much every single demographic in the city, you know, from senior to a kid to, you know, somebody that's athletic. Everyone's gonna get something, you know, and it's not something small, it's big, you know? And so those are my thoughts. I just thought, you know, word jumble, you know, you could put it in any order and it's not gonna be perfect. It's just, you know, it's, if the main thing is money, then you're gonna look at the main things you want.
Carolyn mentioned that on the map it says southeast for one of the splash pad areas, but it looks like it's southwest. We don't really have a southeast, so could we just call it south?
You're right.
That's a little
that would
tiny
be
thing, but just-
Historically,
Yeah.
southwest, not southeast. But- Well, we can
I
clean
live
up
in
that language.
Southeast, though.
But maybe just say
Really?
south so that
Hicks Lake is southeast.
we don't have to
Yeah.
worry about.
South Lacey.
And I will say, council members, thank you for pointing that out. And like I said, this is a draft, and we will continue to review it for those types of things
Yeah.
exactly. And I do appreciate the extra set of eyes on that.
It jumped out at me because I live down that way, but yeah, thanks.
Is there anything else that you think that we need to convey information to the voter about this? I think this is pretty well done. It's a lot of information, right? And that's always, like, we need to get information out so the voter is informed, but we also need to make sure they actually read it and know what this is, you know, that they're not just throwing it away, that we are actually having informed from people looking at this to understand what, you know, what they're receiving for this. So I think the graphics are important. I would go graphic heavy and keep the, you know, language as small as, you know, I think it's just important to show graphics, because people want to see what they're gonna get, and I think that's one way to make sure they're understanding the intent, is to actually see what they're gonna get. But I think this is a good, good start to that, for sure.
Does I saw there's a fiscal note of $110,000 on this. That's just for the ballot, right? That's not for anything like this that we would mail out, or is it both?
Correct, that's the cost for the ballot itself.
Okay,
With the
so any
auditor's
additional mailings would be
In addition to
separate
that.
cost?
Yep.
Okay.
Just one more thought, you know, the language that we have in the resolution states that the funds will be used to expand maintenance, create new facilities, and operate these facilities. And then here, when we say the proposition would, it says maintain, operate, and improve. It doesn't really improve, I'm not sure it says expand.
We can sync that up with the,
We
You
can
may
speak a
wanna-
little bit to that too. So that's actually reading from the RCW of some of the allowed uses. But we can certainly, like I said, you know, we were taking this as a draft and we'll be updating it. And, you know, there's another section, council member, that has very similar language that we'll make sure to update as well.
Right, yeah, so it's consistent all the way through, whatever this ends up looking like. Thanks.
Sync up process, yes.
Yeah.
It's really well done, though. I mean,
And we're
it's
gonna,
impressive.
we're gonna have like QR codes so they can boom, go to this, because obviously we can't send this, that's too much information.
Yeah, so you mentioned earlier that you want people to see it, you want people to take in. The reason, or the way that we do that is not just to send out a flyer and hope that people read it, it's to cover all the other bases of how people consume information. So we'll put stuff into our different newsletters, like I mentioned. We've got other tactics that we use. I mean, meeting with people one-on-one is a big part of what Parks is going to do. We'll hit social media and do all the other things that we do, and that way we cover as many people as possible. And those QR codes will show up all over different things, and it will drive people to the website too, where they can find all the other information.
You know, that got me to thinking, but back to this whereas, to expand maintenance, create new facilities, and operate those facilities. What we're leaving out of here is programs. Like, the reason why I bring this up, and I was just reminded because of my, my niece is at that age where every summer it's a mad dash to go to the Lacey Parks and sign up for programs. I mean, it is like, for communities with our families, like, it's the number one thing.
Programs are listed in the ordinance language, or in the proposition
It's actually
language.
in
They're
the-
not listed in the the
whereas,
flyer, I
but
don't
it's-
know, but they're listed
Okay.
in that top line of the proposition. I know, because I had that same question.
Right,
Because
like-
our parks programs do fill up quick.
Yeah,
Because people love
and-
the classes.
And that is like really important to our community. And we're limited at that because of our funding. But if we could add some more programs, that's a big deal. And so I think that needs to be highlighted here. I think that needs to be highlighted in the information because, yeah, I think it's, yeah. I mean, it's like,
All your friends are in except for you, so.
I mean, everyone's been there. It's like the Hunger Games, you know?
But to Councilmember Vasquez's point, that will actually be language on the actual ballot that would include those
Okay.
programs.
But the point's noted, so this council will see a new language in the recitals that will square more closely with the actual proposition, and it will use the word will in the recital.
Perfect.
So that'll be, and of course, council's going to have an opportunity for additional review of this before it ever takes action.
So, my girls were in Lacey Parks programs every summer as well. Parks dad here. One of the things that, that sold me on this and that convinced me to support this was, right now, we're, I think, probably the lowest levy rate in the county.
We are.
We are the absolute lowest levy rate in the county. And the amount of services that we provide for those dollars is immense. And so I'm not sure if people understand that, we're here and the rest of the levies are here, right? And so I kind of, when I saw that illustration.
It's a very important.
Troy slide.
And that's good information to have, and something that we always try to get out. Like, we have the lowest levy rate, I bet you, in the state of Washington. I mean, I don't think there's another city in the state of Washington, definitely not our size, that has a levy rate our low. I've been talking about this for a lot of years. And one of the things I've said is that, with our levy rate this low, are we actually providing all the services that our community expects from us? And I think we've seen the answer with our Parks Work Group and everything else, saying, no, we actually want more services, especially focused on parks. And so I think it is important to let the voters know that information that's just information.
But Mr. Mayor, that's also what businesses are looking for too, because they want that, they can get employees to come work for them if they have quality of life.
Yeah.
We'll have to take a look at that and make sure we're in line, again, being informative and not persuasive. But we can definitely take a look at that and see if that can be incorporated, but it's information that's
If you
available.
state
through our
that Lacey
budget
has the
documents.
lowest rate, per 1,000 assessed value, and that's a fact.
Or we could just create a table that reflects the different levy rates for the different cities and not say anything, just show it. But I was going to ask, I think the mayor asked about a QR code. Are we going to have a landing page that has additional information, maybe even beyond what we can include in a flyer like this? That seems like the kind of place we'd want to put that additional information about our current low levy rate.
Yeah, that page is under development right now.
Cool.
Just add on to what Ty was saying there as underdeveloped. So again, the communications plan, this is, kind of a living internal document, but it's supposed to inform future types of materials like the website. So you'll notice in the comms plan, there are a list of Q&As, informational Q&As, and the idea would be to select, the most pertinent, maybe the ones we're getting questions about, and make sure that that's on the website and various places that people can access through, whether it's looking directly on our homepage or scanning the QR code or other means.
Yeah, perfect. To Andy's point, though, when I get my tax bill my eye goes to the bottom line. Okay, this is the check I have to write. I don't necessarily go up and say, oh, this is what Lacey's charging me versus this is what I'm paying for in this tax and the library tax and the fire district tax and all these things. So I just hate to muddy it up because I think most people really are more bottom line oriented on their tax bill. Even though, yes, it is a point of pride that Lacey does have a low tax rate.
I just think it's important to point out that we actually have the lowest levy rate, and because this is what we're affecting is the levy with this. And so it's, I think it's good information to have. It's, if we had the highest levy rate, then we're talking about raising the levy even higher. That's one thing, but we actually have the lowest levy rate. So I think it's just a point information. I think we can,
Yeah.
We'll look into that.
look into that. Fair enough, fair enough.
So thank you very much. If we can collect those drafts back, so, because they aren't complete.
Proprietary? Okay.
Top secret in this open public meeting being recorded and live streamed.
Sounds good. Okay, well, with that, we've reached the end of our agenda, however.
Next Tuesday, we have
I'm
the
gonna go
4th.
to that.
Okay.
So next Tuesday is our first informal meeting that starts at 4:30 here at City Hall. So it's the first start of the informal dinner
And
meetings.
it'll be in the community, it'll be in the community room on the other, next to the left, right in front of the Parks counter.
So remember, next Tuesday, informal dinner meeting. We don't have a set agenda. We will take public comment, right? In written form. Okay, we've reached the end of our agenda. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Then without objection, I will call this meeting adjourned at 8:11. Keep it classy, Lacey.